The anticipated fuel price cuts, as well as stabilizing food prices, are expected to bring much needed respite to the consumers. The August 2022 Household Affordability Index, which tracks food price data, is showing a lowering of inflation on the total basket price for the second consecutive month in August. This is at the back of a huge inflation rate increase in the past 3 successive months, with the month of July delivering the sharpest inflation rate increase at 7.8%, which was announced by Stats SA last week. Well, joining us virtually for this conversation is Mervyn Abrahams. He's the program coordinator at Pietermaritzburg Economic Justice and Dignity, an organization that basically tracks prices on food, electricity and transport costs and their impact on the households. Mervyn, good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Leanne, and good morning to all your viewers.
You and I look like a blaze of red this morning, and I think that's got the viewers a bit worried because it looks like we're showing them a red fire. They're in trouble. They're about to burn. But maybe that's not the case. Perhaps maybe this red is indicating that things are stopping in terms of increasing and might even be coming down. What do you think?
Exactly. And of course, that's our hope, because the South African consumer has been under immense financial stress, Leanne, as we all know. Coming out of COVID, our country hasn't really even recovered from an economic position when we were suddenly hit by this global surge in inflation. It's not only a South African phenomenon, it is a global phenomenon. In fact, it is even not hitting us as hard as it is hitting other countries like the EU and the US. And so we're beginning to see what we are suspecting as having peaked, particularly when it comes to food inflation. Now, food is one of the main drivers of the 7.8 inflation that Stats SA announced earlier this month. And when we look at our data, we can see that the month-on-month increase in our food basket is getting less and less. So in June, the monthly increase was 1.7%. In July, it was 1.3%. In August, it is 0.6%. So we are of the view that food prices are beginning to stabilize. And with that, the overall CPI figures, the overall inflation figures, should also begin to show a moderation as we are going forward into September and October.
So economists basically saying food price inflation is stabilizing, and then that's something that you're alluding to as well. Your data is showing that in August, the average cost of the household food basket is now sitting at 4,775 Rand and 59 cents. So that's how much that basic foodstuff basket is going to be costing us. That's that food basket. Break this down for us. Talk to us about how it works, what's included in the basket, and where the prices are stabilizing, etc.
So, Leanne, our basket consists of 44 very, very basic foods that most South African households try and purchase on a monthly basis. So it consists of things like 30 kgs of maize meal, 10 kgs of flour, 10 kgs of sugar, sugar beans, 5 liters of cooking oil, salt, potatoes, onions, chicken pieces, a little bit of milk and some vegetables like tomatoes and carrots and butternut and spinach, as well as things like margarine, polony, peanut butter, which of course for the children's lunches to school, apricot jam and bread. So those are some of the main items of our basket. And over the past year, we have seen that basket price increase by about 12.6%. So that was an extremely high increase comparative to other years. So that's an indicator that, as Stats SA had said, that food was, in fact, food and fuel were the main drivers of the local South African inflation. The cost is still extremely high. I mean, a cost of a basket of food of 4,775 Rand, that is way above a national minimum wage, which is about 4,000 Rand a month. So it's still very, very high. What we are saying is that the monthly increases are beginning to moderate and are beginning to stabilize. Yeah. And therein lies some good news for the South African consumer.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, we need this. We need a bit of a ray of light, especially on the start of spring day. Perhaps that's a sign of good things to come. So you're saying whilst the monthly prices appear to be lowering, the household basket it's still increasing, but at a slower pace. So we're not jumping up and down just as yet, and that's always our concern, is that we want to see it go down, but sometimes we never see that happening, and that's a question we've been asking for a while, and I know even the Competition Commission are looking into that one. It's that, yes, we see them going up and up and up, and the increase may be slowing down, but it doesn't mean that they're dropping, and that's what we want to see happening.
Exactly, Leanne, exactly. Can we see prices come down? Largely because a major input into some of these prices are, for instance, the cost of fuel. And so we have seen the cost of fuel increase massively globally and locally. But over the last few months, and again on this coming Wednesday, we will see the price of petrol coming down. And because of that, there should be a corresponding decrease in prices. Now, we know that it takes about 2 to 3 months for that prices to be seen at the retail end. But already by now, we should begin to see some prices coming down, in particular prices like the price of bread, the price of maize meal, some of the prices of cooking oil should be coming down now. And we are not seeing that. We are seeing it stabilizing, increasing slowly, but not coming down. And therefore, I commend the Competition Commission for announcing an investigation to see if there is any opportunistic factors playing in the market that is actually keeping prices high.
I like that. That word opportunistic, unfortunately, is one that is being used a lot these days, even though retailers would defend it and say, no, that's not the case. How do you expect us to get by? Because at the end of the day, there's so much working against us that, yes, we need to increase things a lot. I mean, when you add in the cost of load shedding, the cost of staff, the cost of all of these issues that many of these retailers face, they can justify the cost of everything that they've priced, and that's sometimes a harsh pill to swallow.
Exactly, and that raises another aspect to our overall economy, because when we look at inflation, when we look at food prices, for instance, we cannot look at that in isolation from other economic factors. So, for instance, the fact of load shedding is actually costing the South African consumer not only the fact that we don't have electricity in our homes, but it's actually making goods and services more expensive. So that is a cost, an extra cost that the consumer is carrying, and so we need to look at that. For instance, the fact that when electricity prices increase, when fuel prices increase, or transport costs increase, for instance, taxi fares have gone up, it's not coming down again. That leaves less money in the pockets of ordinary South Africans to purchase sufficient food. So it has a direct impact not on the food price, but on how much food a family can actually buy and consume. So it is critically important that, for instance, when we come to administered prices, so for instance, electricity prices, when we talk about municipal tariffs, all of these have a direct impact because that also contributes to inflation in South Africa.
Yeah. We've been told that as an importing country, South Africa is affected by what's going on globally. And the price increases we've endured these past months are due to world events, particularly the fuel price, I beg your pardon. What has changed in that regard for the stabilization of some of the things that we are seeing? Why would it? Because when you look globally, things are still looking very, very hard.
Yes, Leanne. But what we have seen, for instance, one of the major factors that drove this massive spike in food prices is the war between Russia and the Ukraine. Because Russia and the Ukraine provide up to about 30% of the world's wheat, corn production, sunflower production. So that's major. What we have seen is that Ukraine is now able to start exporting some wheat, some sunflower from their silos in the Black Sea through Turkey onto the global market. So that's kind of relieved the global markets. That has also led to fuel prices globally coming down. And it's also led to some countries opening up. So, for instance, India was contemplating banning wheat from leaving India in order to provide for their own people. Malaysia did the same with palm oil to provide for their own people. They wouldn't sell globally. And that led to cooking oil spiking by about 10% almost in one particular month. So those factors are calming. And it is globally the prices are coming down. So our import prices are considerably less now than it was, say, in June or even in as far back as May.
Okay. Something I think that we need to look at, and we touched on the whole Competition Commission issue, is that prices and food prices seem to be in the same range, prices across all of the popular food retailers, which brings to mind last week's findings of the investigation of the Competition Commission on cooking oil. The body found that sunflower oil prices increased by 72% this year alone. I mean, that's far more than the price of sunflower seeds, which have remained relatively stable. Are there signs, perhaps, of some collision at the moment, or is it too early to tell? But what are you thinking?
Yes. We really have to wait for Consumer Commission to come out to some. It is really, really very, very difficult because we do not have the data that allows us to really see what the retail sector is doing. So let's wait what the Competition Commission comes out with. I really trust them. I know that they are really, really looking out for the South African consumer. We have lots of talk with the Competition Commission, and I trust their findings. Unfortunately for us, it is really almost impossible to give a credible answer to that question, because we do not have access to the data to study it.
Yeah. With the effects from March 2022, the national minimum wage was adjusted to 23 Rand and 19 cents per hour. But that is not much in the current economic climate, and the wage negotiations currently underway are likely to offer far less than the inflation rate. So if you consider that last year the government's offer was 1%, is there any real reprieve for households? Because people are in a very difficult situation, and when we look at the minimum wage and increases, they're just not coming through.
Leanne, therein lies one of our main economic concerns. The fact that wages are not increasing at the level of the CPI, in fact, means that real wages for workers are actually decreasing, because what you can buy with that wage, I mean, the numbers. So if I earn 6,000 or 7,000, it doesn't really mean much. If I don't compare it to what I can buy with that amount of money. So the real wage for workers have been decreasing over a number of years in South Africa, which is putting immense stress on households, but it's also having a wider economic effect. Our economy can only grow if there is demand for extra goods and services. And that requires that people have money in their pocket to demand that. And so part of the reason why the South African economy is not growing is because wages are so low and real wages are decreasing, and there is not enough money flowing around to demand various things like furniture or extra paint or things like that, which could stimulate employment. Because no company is going to produce goods or services if they cannot sell it. And they cannot sell it because there's nobody with the extra money to buy it. So that's part of our problem is not just what happens in the household, but how that reflects into the broader South African economy.
All right, Mervyn, thanks so much. Thanks for chatting to us. Have a wonderful day. And yeah, good to hear your views on this. And let's just hope turning points and a better cost of living for everybody is coming up soon. Mervyn Abrahams is the program coordinator at Pietermaritzburg Economic Justice and Dignity, discussing whether the stability of food and petrol prices are offering any reprieve in real terms for households. Remember, we're still waiting to hear the decrease in the petrol price that'll happen next week. But of course, that we'll probably hear the details of that in due course. But that is also expected next week.